Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training. We're here in Portland, Oregon, and we're here with the Inspector John. We're doing a re-inspection of a fire escape system that claims to be inspected and in good working order. So we've got a nice shiny black fire escape here. We got two to look at, and let's take a look. They came here, and let's go for the first and easiest one to write a violation. More paint than rust, or more paint or rust than paint?
More paint.
So we're good there. Let's take a look at structural. Now the new guidelines are just here. You know, nobody's looking for squares, but you're going to start looking for them from now on, right, as evidence. Right. But are these fire escapes now that are questionable in your mind, and you need to sort of bring in the engineer in on this to basically say, hey, we need to sort of have one more peekaboo at this thing, and just assess whether or not you feel confident that the current situation deserves another lookie, you know, just to make sure that the treads minimally are in a, did you hammer test the treads? So you can actually go back and speak with the engineer and say, you don't mind if we have these re-inspected, do you? But did you hammer test all the treads? Did you verify all the connections? Is there rust that got removed? So by looking up at this fire escape, you can start looking at a couple of things. You can see evidence of repair on the supports of the posts of the staircase. You can see all the square bolts not changed out. Actually, if let me see if I can see some hex heads because they don't look normal anymore. But actually no, they're still squares. So the bolt, the superstructure is still square, and that's the problem when they got black shiny ones. You can barely see it unless you have some binoculars. Right. That's why I was asking for binoculars when I was leaving today. I said, did anybody bring binoculars? Because binoculars, you'll get right in there and see the situation. So right now, what is failing this fire escape is not that anything is evident, but the fact that you have square head bolts on all the treads and all the supports. This fire escape, even though you have a structural engineer's report in your hand that says it's good, you're now questioning it because the new things you've learned in the class today, had the engineer learn the same things, okay, then he would write a different violation, wouldn't he? So maybe these engineers should be seeing some of this Fire Escape Academy Inspector training videos on what you guys are looking for.
Wouldn't hurt.
Wouldn't hurt. It's there, it's free, isn't it?
Right.
All right, let's take a look at this other one. Let's look at the lap joint on this fire escape. It looks all right?
Let's see what the first one is, way up. We can't tell, it's probably got rust in between them.
But it's not blasting out visual, so. Okay, let's take a look at this one. What about this waiting balcony with some debris in there? You know, they use those as things for gardens.
Right.
Is that will you save somebody off of that? So does that need to be certified? It's called an area of refuge. It's called a balcony.
Right. Yeah, see, I didn't know if it was just
well, the code is very clear.
Okay.
Fire escapes and balconies. Is that a balcony? Is that a balcony that you can wait for to be saved?
Well,
will the fireman use his ladder and use that as an entry point to get into the building? If you come on a fire escape, you know, those fire truck ladders, and he got up there, and can he jump on that and jump in?
See, why not?
So could they hurt a fireman?
Right.
So that must be guaranteed safe, right? So let's take a look at this one. Now, we haven't climbed up there, so I'm just trying to find evidence that maybe somebody cheated the system a little bit, okay? So let's do that. Let's see if we can sharpen our eyes and look at this fire escape. Again, more paint than rust, or more rust than paint?
Okay.
Okay, let's look at the lap joints. Look at the last set of lap joints. Questionable or passable? Questionable. Okay, so you're already seeing, even though they painted it nice and black, you're already starting to see what's called the rust eyeliner. These evident lines that there's something in there. Good. Now let's pull back a little bit and look at all these treads and look specifically at the joints of where the treads meet the flat. You
riveted.
See, I know they're riveted, and some of them are square-headed. So square-headed bolts, they're not rivets, they're square-head bolts. But just look. Yeah, some of them are rivets. But look up against the flat on the inside. You see any of them that are bulging out a little bit. Specifically between the ladder. If you come in here, see that one between the ladder? Does that look like they're painted over rust? Okay. Now let's look straight up there a little bit. But you don't need to find 8 of them. You need to find one of them. So you now are asked, did this fire escape pass? It looks like a good, reasonable attempt was made. But right now you have evidence that the guy just painted over it, because I got rivets and square heads, and there's not one. I got not one bolt that was changed on this supposed refurbishment of this fire escape. Not one over there and not one over here. So even though it looks pristine, even though you got an engineer that says it looks good, where do you think that engineer did his inspection? From up there or from down here?
Probably from down here.
All right.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to label this fire escape suspect until further notice. You'll keep the current certificate from the engineer,
right,
but you need to bring him out. You need to have a meeting with him here, don't you? And not to knock him out of the box and say you can't do these anymore. Just say, do you know what we look for? Do you know that it doesn't make any sense for me to come out here as a firefighter and say to you, Mr. Engineer, that this 75-year-old fire escape that I'm looking at right now that's fully painted, that you just signed off on, you couldn't find one bolt that was wrong with this thing? And even though I'm not even the guy that fixes this, I'm looking up there and that tread number 4 has got a quarter inch of rust that I can see from down here, even though the guy painted it. You didn't see that as a professional engineer? You don't think any one of these fire escape treads is going to give way? Forget about the major supports with all their squares still on there. You know, even though this is brand new to us, this is like a whole new awareness that we're going through. You as an engineer, did you walk this thing? Did you do all those things that you're supposed to do anyway? Did you hammer test any of these things? You normally sign on things that have rust in the connection. So you're going to say, we need you to sharpen up your skills a little bit more, because what we're looking for is fire escape that have evidence of refurbishment. Otherwise, on its own, if I got here and this fire escape was not painted black, I would write a repair paint violation on this anyway, on the structural, because I've got enough evidence that the square bolts are still here, that in its lifetime it's never been refurbished, and looks like right now it hasn't been refurbished either. So on these fire escapes that are fully black, certificates in hand from structural engineers, I would put a question mark on them and say, subject to review, and you need to bring these people in. And just have sit-downs just like you're doing right now, or you meet them right here, and with all the things you and I just learned today, you just have a one-on-one with him. You just say, hey, listen, I think it's impossible, because, you know, these people paid you for the expertise, which is the structural expertise, not the paint expertise. Why would they hire a structural engineer for, tell me the best paint job I can do in my building? No, they came and said, is there anything wrong with my building? And there is. I've got so many structural issues because I have one unknown you never eliminated. You didn't eliminate the tread bolts, and you didn't eliminate my supports. And even if you did, our new policy is going to be that even if you prove that these treads are all good and these supports are all good, we would see the backup bolts already in them as proof to us. Because right in the middle of those two, because you've proved that they're good and they're sealed now, because that's a new thing we're going to go for too, we see this nice hex head. So just so you know, we're not against square bolts. We're against 75-year-old square bolts with no backup. So where's my backup? And that's what that's the new mentality that you're going to be going. And if not now, in 5 years' time, you're going to hit this fire escape again anyway. Or maybe you're going to hit this fire escape in the 1 year cycle. So you can't get them now, but 1 year from now, because there's the annual checkup list that's going to be incorporated. 1 year from now, can you rewrite this violation? And what are you going to write?
Needs to be redone.
Repair paint test. And they're like, what do you mean? This is like just a year ago. I said, yeah, but we have evidence with the square bolts that great on the paint job. Very good. But structurally, you don't know what you're doing. And the guy that did this didn't know what he's doing, but thank God a year later, we caught up. So some of these, you can put them on as questionable, but they'll be picked up on the 1 year recycle inspection. Got it? So does that answer your question for this building?